Let's talk about belief and self-image. Almost all of us have some kind of limiting beliefs. Although some are more obvious to us, vast majority of them are actually more invisible to us. And same goes for unnecessarily negative self-image. You are probably so accustomed to your own self-image that you no longer realize which part of it are more realistic and which part of it are just from your negative or overly dramatic interpretations. Well, of course, I thought I was too smart for that. Turned out, I wasn't. So if you're anything like me, you probably should watch this as well. This is how I like to put it. You have put on top of yourself an invisible glass ceiling. Well, although that ceiling might be very high because to you, that's where your limit lies. Beyond the glass ceiling are things that you never knew you actually could achieve. Even though you actually could. So watch till the end and I promise you'll learn something new about yourself, because I certainly did. I've been on self-improvement for about 4 to 5 years now. So in the meantime, I've came across a lot of different self-improvement advice, but still a lot of them doesn't really work properly because they remain on a very micro day-to-day level and they fail to really go deep into your fundamentals of self-improvement. Until I read this book called the Psycho-Cybernetics. A big shout out to the YouTuber Hamza. If you're in the self-improvement space, then you'll realize his name popping up in the last year or so. And this book truly is a hidden gem, just like my channel. To really understand the impact this book can have on you, I think it makes sense to look into my story and how I grew up. I grew up in Hong Kong in an extremely elitist Asian society. I was taught to be reasonable, to be humble, to not to think about unrealistic dreams and to stay grounded. I was very proud of myself for being very good in school. I was always reasonable, but it is only after I've moved abroad I slowly started to question my own belief of being too reasonable. Although on one hand, I was seen as successful by the traditional Asian society, the downside is that I can't really go chase my dream. I have suppressed my own passion and feeling for a long time because I was told this elitist dream instead of really following what I wanted to do. So I think the author of Psycho-Cybernetics put it very well. Imagine there's one big box, right? And within that big box, there's another smaller box. You are within the smaller box. The limits of the smaller box are your self-image, your self-perception. So as I said, I was quite reasonable, but I was also very ambitious, right? So I kept stretching to the outer limits of my inner box, thinking that I'm pushing my potential. But what I don't realize is that the smaller box is within a bigger box, and that bigger box is my actual potential, is what I actually am capable of doing. But because of different life experiences, because of what I've been told when I was young, because of everything that I've experienced up to that point of my life, I've imposed a lot of different limits on my self-image, and as a result, that smaller box was, in my opinion, what I could realistically expect of myself. So fast forward a few years later, after being into self-improvement, I learned all about positive thinking, atomic habits, 4-hour work week, etc. And I've always heard about visualization, how to have a positive mindset. And I thought I knew all of that. What I didn't realize is that I didn't really understand what it meant, and I didn't really understand how it operates. So this is one of the biggest lessons from Psycho-Cybernetics. Your self-image is the foundation of your self-improvement. And no quick fix can improve you unless you align your most fundamental, basic self-image to who you aspire to become. So imagine you want to drink from a glass, but there is a small hole in the glass. So any sort of self-improvement tactic, for example, waking up early, journaling, even building up a habit, those all work as a tape that you tape on the glass. It is only temporary. Unless you actually fix the glass itself, unless you actually replace the glass, those fixes are only temporary. They'll never be permanent. So in this case, replacing a glass is the equivalent of updating your self-image. You must replace your old self-image, which might have been result of a lot of unconscious thinking, people telling you what to do instead of you really thinking through. A lot of that kind of thinking resulted in your self-perception, your self-image of who you are today, and you must update that for any sort of self-improvement to work properly. Simply realizing that your self-image is not actually who you are, but a result of many different factors combining in your life. Simply realizing that can already spark a change in your self-image. But the problem remains. Even though you realize that outside of your smaller box, there is an even bigger box, how do you actually align your self-image with that outer box? For example, even though I am a self-proclaimed confident person, my self-belief still does not completely align with who I want to be and what I believe is my outer box. I want to eventually reach 100k subs on YouTube, but that's very hard for me to visualize when I only have 84 subs as of today, and you can make it 85. And this is where imagine comes in, according to the author of Psycho-Cybernetics. Imagination is extremely powerful on your subconscious mind. There's this famous basketball experiment. A group of young men was separated into 3 groups, and they were asked to make basketball 3 throws, and their score was recorded down. After that, one group was told to practice basketball 3 throws for an hour a day for a month. The second group was told to do nothing. And the third group was told to mentally visualize themselves doing basketball 3 throws. So after a month, they came back and they made 3 throws again. And obviously, the group that was told to do nothing didn't have any sort of improvement whatsoever. The second group, which was the group that practiced, of course they improved by 24%. And the last group, the group that didn't practice at all, the group that had practiced in their brain, actually improved 23%. So this is how powerful your imagination can be. While imagination can be helpful in mental training for physical aspects, it can also be very helpful in changing your self-image. And the Psycho-Cybernetics is actually a very powerful exercise that you can do to utilize your imagination to change your self-image and sort of gear yourself towards success. So in a nutshell, this is the exercise. This is the most important bit of the whole book. First of all, you have to consciously decide on a goal. Second of all, you carefully craft a mental picture of what you are after you've achieved the goal. So you don't think about the process whatsoever, you only craft the mental picture of the outcome. Thirdly, you mentally visualize yourself with that crafted picture 10 to 30 minutes a day. The book said 30 minutes, but I thought that was way too long, so I just do 10 for now. And what the author recommends is to actually see the mental picture as if you're in a cinema. So imagine yourself walking into the cinema, but instead of the cinema playing Avengers or whatever, is playing your own mental movie. Do that for 10 minutes every day. So now you have a goal and you have a very, very clear, detailed picture of what life will be like, how you will feel after you've accomplished that goal, and you visualized it. Now the next step is to basically work backwards to figure out how to get you from now, which is point A, to point B, which is the end of your goal. So I'm sure you're thinking like, this is some serious reverse psychology. And I was extremely skeptical at first as well. But then after reading the book, I keep seeing similar patterns in successful people. And that's when I actually decided to start trying this exercise for myself. For example, Muhammad Ali, probably the greatest boxer of all time, self-proclaimed himself to be the greatest before he was even like a well-known boxer, before he had anything to back it up. So this is a quote of him that really shows you what I meant. It's the repetition of affirmation that leads to belief. And once that belief becomes a deep conviction, things begin to happen. Now let me give you a second example. So recently I've been listening to a lot of Jack Harlow. If you don't know Jack Harlow, he's like this hip-hop singer that really popped off in the last year or two. And because I was so like addicted to him, I started looking up like interviews, old clips of him. And this is how he looks like now. This is how he looked like when he first started rapping. He has been in the rap game for 10 years before he popped off. But even still, in one of the recent interviews, that's what he said. I had no idea what I was doing, but I still thought I was the best at it. And now you begin to see the pattern of these high achievers. Just like the famous saying goes, right? You're only crazy until you succeed, and then you're a genius. All these highly successful people are all overly confident, and some even call them delusional. But it is only being so confident in yourself, so confident that you don't need to back it up with any evidence at all, that actually leads you to the success that you envisioned. Now, Psycho-Cybernetics is not the only way of doing that, but I believe it is a very good way of doing so. After giving it a try for at least a week, I can clearly see some impact on me. Now, you might say, oh Jason, this is all BS, this is just placebo effect. But isn't that all we need? Maybe this is BS, maybe this doesn't actually work. But as long as the placebo works, is that not what it all matters? Anyway, if you want to give this exercise a try, here are some more tips. The author recommended you to relax yourself before you start the exercise. So he recommended some methods like focusing on your breath whatsoever. But I was doing meditation every morning anyway. So what I do nowadays is just anchor my Psycho-Cybernetics visualization exercise right after my meditation, to make sure that I was very present and in a very zen mood to go into the visualization. And second of all, before you start visualizing your picture, he recommended you to think of a winning feeling. So the example he used was the feeling you had when you tied your shoelaces for the first time. And the exercise I personally used was two of them. First of all, the feeling I had when I broke my bench press personal record in the gym. And second of all, the feeling I had when I finally landed my first ever job. Just think of something, whatever, small wins, big wins, doesn't have to be related to your visualization, and hold on to that feeling while you're doing your visualization. And there you go. This is really a game changer for me. You do not use success as evidence to improve your self-image. Instead, you work on your self-image first. See success as a virtual certainty, and then figure out how to get to that success. This is definitely still super counterintuitive to me. And as I said, I was like this reasonable person growing up, but it's working, so I'll just keep going. And I can already feel that I carry myself with a lot more weight and that I present with a lot more conviction. So yeah, look inward and fix yourself first. Through this journey of really taking the time to reflect on my self-image, I was able to put a lot of old and outdated insecurities behind. And that alone, I think, already makes the practice worth it for me. Thanks for staying till the end, and I hope you learned something interesting or inspiring on the way. Try this exercise and see the changes for yourself. Let's learn and grow together. Bye.